Young people and drug use. Our focus is an herb native to southern Mexico that causes hallucinations when smoked and can cause the user to lose control of thoughts and actions. It's called Salvia.
Social media challenge encouraging kids to overdose on an allergy drug, and it just caused the death of a 13-year-old boy.
They call it robo-tripping, drinking a large amount of cough syrup to get high, and it's on the rise among teens.
It feel like they were surrounded by Santa Claus and his elves.
I don't feel like I'm ever gonna come down.
Over the last decade, legal drug usage has reached an all-time high, and with that, younger teens are increasingly experimenting with substances far more dangerous than the typical marijuana. Among these, hallucinogens stand out as some of the most dangerous. These drugs, often perceived as a way to escape reality or experience something new, carry risks that are far more than what many anticipate. They don't just alter your perception, they can distort your sense of reality in ways that are unpredictable and potentially deadly. What makes hallucinogens particularly concerning is their ability to blur the line between what's real and the imagined, leading users into a state of profound disorientation that could have severe psychological and physical consequences. We first are going to talk about a particularly hazardous subcategory of hallucinogens known as deliriants. Unlike other hallucinogens, deliriants don't create vivid visual experiences, they induce a state of delirium, where users often lose touch of reality entirely, leading to terrifying experiences that can result in long-term mental health issues or even death. Let's start with answering, what is Datura? Datura is a deliriant that comes from a plant that can be consumed by eating, smoking, and even by ointment. Every part of the plant can be consumed, but the most dangerous and potent is the seeds. Only consuming about 15 to 25 seeds is enough to be a fatal dose. What makes this even more dangerous is every Datura plant differs in potency, meaning there's never an accurate range for safe consumption. Which means taking Datura is basically like playing Russian roulette with drugs. The side effects for taking this drug is as follows: dry mouth, dilated pupils, blurred vision, increased heart rate, fever and hypothermia, nausea and vomiting, muscle weakness, seizures, respiratory distress, comas, and even death. Psychological side effects include intense hallucinations, paranoia, amnesia, confusion, aggression, restlessness, speech problems, psychosis, depression, and thoughts. On Reddit, there's even a dedicated subreddit to this, being r/Datura. r/Datura has been repeatedly taken down due to a dangerous and illegal nature of its content. The discussions are often centered around consumption of Datura, with users sharing dosing information and personal experiences that violated Reddit's policies against promoting harmful activities. The subreddit posed significant legal and ethical concerns, as Datura's potential to cause severe poisoning, lasting psychological harm, or even death made any encouragement of it extremely risky. Despite these warnings and guidelines, the continued promotion of such dangerous behavior, along with the spread of misinformation and lack of proper harm reduction, led to repeated shutdowns, although the subreddit is still up. As mentioned, taking Datura causes intense hallucinations that can vary from multiple things. These are some replications that people have made to try to mimic what these hallucinations would look like. Trip reports on Datura, as you can imagine, are quite bizarre, and has some of the most intense stories you'll ever read from trip reports. But by far, the most disturbing to me is this.
It's March 5th, 2008. Don't seem to be coming down. It's been about 2 months. I can't really go out. Been spending a lot of time in the basement. I think it's wearing off. I don't really know what to do to make it wear off. Just don't feel like I'm getting that center feeling, center back. I think I boiled the roots right. I did what it said in the book. I don't feel like I'm ever gonna come down. And it's not cool. It's getting weird. It's definitely getting weird.
According to him, he's been tripping off Datura for over 2 months with no signs of him getting better. Many people played it off as a joke or something to not be taken that seriously, but the reality of it is that this could be a sign of HPPD, which has been reported to be a symptom of taking high amounts of Datura. Under normal circumstances, Benadryl is thought of as safe when taken properly with the recommended dosage. However, it becomes one of the most potent, reality-altering chemicals you can come across when consumed in abundance. Anyone who wants to play with this dosage discrepancy risks losing their life. Although Benadryl is the easiest drug on this list to get, perhaps one of the most dangerous. At first sight, you wouldn't expect an over-the-counter allergy medicine to be dangerous. But the reality is, this is one of the most sneakily dangerous psychedelics, and just like Datura, Benadryl or diphenhydramine, DPH for short, is a deliriant. Deliriants, unlike typical psychedelics, plunge you into a state of delirium, a condition marked by extreme confusion and disorientation, where the hallucinations are so vivid that they feel disturbingly real. When someone takes Benadryl in high doses, they may not always experience the desired effects immediately, especially those seeking a high or hallucinations. This delayed onset can lead to the dangerous decision to redose. Redosing occurs when a person doesn't feel the expected effects after the first initial dose, and mistakenly believes that taking more will speed up or enhance the experience. However, Benadryl is notoriously unpredictable, and its effects can vary significantly from one person to another. Redosing increases the risk of overdose, which can lead to dangerous outcomes. At high doses, Benadryl can induce bizarre and unsettling experiences. People report seeing shadowy figures, often referred to as the Hat Man, and even feeling like they're smoking invisible cigarettes. These hallucinations aren't just strange, but they're deeply disorienting and can be dangerous, sometimes resulting in self-harm or even death. It's like entering an alternate reality, and their experiences are so common that entire communities have formed around sharing and studying them. The most well-known is r/DPH. This subreddit has been controversial as many different incidents occurred within the community. The most well-known was a Reddit user known as Tired of People Faking Too. The user made 3 separate posts where he outlined his alarming plans to ingest dosages ranging from 2,000 to 4,000 mgs of dipyrhydramine, or DPH. These amounts were a staggering 80 to 160 times higher than the recommended dosage. Top F2 would frequently post about his own personal despair and self-loathing, with explicit statements indicating that he did not care about his odds of survival at these high extreme dosages. After these posts, he disappeared from the platform for 3 months, but later returned with a progress update on his struggle with addiction. In his following post, he shared a powerful message for newcomers and those curious about DPH. I highly recommend you quit before you even start, or quit now before things take a turn for the worse. I wish I could have broken my habit a long time ago, but the past is the past, and I can't change that. However, if any of you are determined to try it, I must tell you about my experiences with DPH. Top F2 went on to detail the dire consequences of his DPH use, including ICU admissions, comas resulting from dangerous heart arrhythmias, severe respiratory depression, and seizures, all occurring 3 times within a single year. He emphasized the highly addictive nature of DPH, making it a challenge to stay clean. DPH had not only affected his physical health, but hindered his ability to learn effectively in school and perform well at his job. Despite him talking about his addiction and his attempts to stay clean, the situation eventually reached a tipping point when he would post this: 276 pills, totaling 6.9 Gs of Benadryl. The caption read, "Why the hell not?" The silence after the post from the user hinted at the dire consequences that may have followed. It seemed that they had possibly succumbed to their addiction, and sadly, they weren't alone. I have a whole video over this that I'll link now. I explain this way more in depth, and the reason I made a whole video over this is because of how sneakily dangerous this drug really is. The panic over this drug reached an all-time high, where young teens and young adults would attempt a new challenge on the social media platform TikTok, where the person would take a large amount of Benadryl and attempt to experience deep hallucinations or simply just get a high. There was a lack of proper education over the drug, and most people believed that taking part in this challenge resulted in little to no risk, due to it just being a common cold medicine. It's not hard to guess what shortly happened after the challenge gained popularity. Multiple young teens tragically passed away as a result of this challenge. This ended up hitting mainstream news, with many calling to action for TikTok to remove these videos. At the time of my Benadryl challenge video upload, these videos were still up, and it was relatively easy to search up the term Benadryl challenge, and I'm happy to say, after a couple weeks, TikTok banned these words and deleted all videos related to the subject. DMT is a powerful psychedelic compound found naturally in various plants and animals, including humans. It can be consumed by smoking, vaporizing, or even brewing it into a traditional ayahuasca tea. What sets DMT apart is its rapid onset and short duration when smoked, often called the businessman's trip, for how quickly it takes effect and how intense it is. Despite this, DMT is one of the most potent psychedelics known to humanity. Just like other powerful drugs, the experience with DMT is unpredictable. The trip lasts anywhere from 5 to 30 minutes when smoked, but it can feel like an eternity to the user. This brief yet overwhelming experience makes it difficult for many to grasp its full impact until they've come down from the trip. So what happens when you take DMT? Most people who take DMT report experiencing an overwhelming sensation of being transported to another dimension, completely detached from reality. Often, this includes intense visuals, geometric patterns, or encounters with entities. These entities stand out from the other drugs by having unique entities that are not usually shared by the others. These are heavily recorded by many researchers, with giving percentages of what people saw, and most notable being a being at 60%, guide at 43%, spirit at 39%, alien at 39%, a helper at 34%, angel at 16%, an elf at 14%, religious entities at 11%, fairy at 8%, clown at 6%, demon at 6%, a gnome at 5%, and a monster at 3%. And for many who take this drug, the trip involves a strong sense of ego death or a loss of self, where they no longer feel like an individual in the traditional sense. Instead, they feel like they're a part of a greater cosmic force. The psychological effects can be equally intense, with feelings of euphoria, awe, and even terror. Some users describe profound spiritual revelations, while others report an overwhelming sense of fear or confusion. Physically, DMT is known for causing increased heart rate, elevated blood pressure, rapid eye movements, intense visual distortions, and nausea. Although the psychological side effects is where the real dangers lie. The intensity of the hallucinations can lead to extreme disorientation, panic attacks, and feelings of paranoia. Because DMT is so powerful, people often struggle between what's real and what's not during the trip. This can lead to dangerous situations, especially if taken in an unsafe environment. Much like other substances, there are online communities dedicated to DMT, such as the subreddit r/DMT. Here people share their experiences, post trip reports, and discuss various methods of consumption. While many users approach DMT with respect and caution, others may treat it more casually, which is incredibly dangerous given the drug's potency. When it comes to trip reports, DMT often produces some of the most bizarre and otherworldly experiences you can imagine. People describe seeing alien landscapes, communicating with higher dimensional beings, and gaining insights into the nature of reality itself. While some come out of the experience feeling enlightened, others are left shaken to the core. Here's a replication of what these trips can look like. These won't be 100% accurate, as DMT's effects are really hard to replicate. One of the more unsettling aspects of DMT is the ability to make the user feel like they've lived in a lifetime in a matter of minutes. This phenomenon can leave lasting psychological impacts on some users, and in extreme cases, could trigger episodes of psychosis or pre-existing mental health conditions. Although DMT is not considered physically addictive, the intensity of its effects can have long-lasting psychological impacts. People with a history of mental health issues such as schizophrenia or bipolar disorder are particularly at risk. The profound and sometimes terrifying hallucinations can trigger underlying issues or result in episodes of psychosis. And similar to the Datura, this drug also carries the risk of HPPD. Salvia is a powerful hallucinogen plant native to the Mazatec region of Mexico. Traditionally, it's used for spiritual healing and divination. Salvia has gained attention worldwide for its intense and often disorienting effects. Unlike more common psychedelics, salvia is a dissociative hallucinogen that acts on the brain's kappa-opioid receptors, leading to a totally different experience than something like LSD or magic mushrooms. Salvia is usually consumed by smoking the dried leaves, although some people chew fresh leaves or use extracts for a stronger effect. Its short, intense trip sets it apart from other substances when smoked. The effects come on almost immediately, and the entire experience lasts anywhere from 5 to 10 minutes. However, don't let the short duration fool you, because for many, those few minutes feel like an eternity. So what happens when you take salvia? Salvia trips are often described as some of the most disorienting and bizarre of any hallucinogen. The user typically experiences a complete detachment from reality, often losing awareness of their surroundings or even their own body. Common themes include time disorientation, intense visual hallucinations, and loss of self. Physically speaking, salvia is relatively harmless with a few side effects. However, psychologically, the experience can be intense and disorienting. Common physical side effects include dizziness, sweating, nausea, and motor function impairment. And similar to DMT, the real risk of salvia comes from the psychological side effects. The dissociative nature of the drug can lead to extreme confusion, anxiety, or panic, especially for those who aren't prepared for how quickly it takes hold. There are reports of users becoming agitated or trying to move around while under the influence, leading to very unsafe situations if they're in an unsafe environment. Like the other substances we've covered, salvia has found its place in online communities such as r/salvia. Users share stories of their trips, advice on how to prepare for their experience, and warnings for newcomers. These communities often emphasize the importance of setting and mindset known as set and setting when taking salvia. Because the trip can be so overwhelming, having a trusted sitter or being in a safe place is crucial. However, much like r/DMT or r/DPH, there are risks of misinformation. While salvia is legal in some places, its unpredictableness and intense effects makes it a drug that should be approached with extreme caution. You'll find countless trip reports of users who did not take it seriously, only to find themselves in chaotic and terrifying experiences. Salvia trips are notoriously strange and surreal. Users often describe experiencing alternate realities, interacting with beings, or even becoming inanimate objects. For example, some people report feeling like they've been transformed into a plant or part of a wall. One of the most unsettling aspects of salvia is its ability to completely warp a person's perception of time and space. Here's a few examples of what these trips can look like. Despite the bizarre nature of salvia trips, it's important to remember that for many, these experiences aren't necessarily enjoyable. In fact, a lot of people find the intensity of salvia to be downright disturbing, with some even describing it as traumatic. Salvia is not known for providing the same kind of spiritual insights or connectiveness that other psychedelics might. Instead, it's often described as more disorienting and chaotic. Salvia is not physically addictive, but its intense psychological effects can have long-lasting impacts. There's the potential for users to experience lingering anxiety or confusion after a particularly rough trip. And as with any dissociative drug, those with pre-existing mental health conditions should be cautious. While it's rare, cases of people injuring themselves during a salvia trip have been reported, often due to the user's inability to understand their surroundings or control their own movements. That's why having a sober sitter present is highly recommended when experimenting with this substance. Dextromorphin, or DXM, is a common ingredient found in over-the-counter cough and cold medicines like Robitussin and NyQuil. While it's intended to suppress coughs, DXM is also recreationally used for its dissociative and hallucinogenic effects. In large doses, it acts like a dissociative drug, similar to substances like ketamine or PCP, causing users to feel detached from their surroundings and even from themselves. DXM is usually consumed by drinking cough syrup, swallowing pills, or taking gel caps, often in doses far exceeding the recommended amount. The effects of DXM vary depending on the dose, with users often describing their trips in terms of plateaus, from mild euphoria and disorientation at lower doses to intense hallucinations and out-of-body experiences at higher levels. So what happens when you take DXM? DXM trips are broken down into plateaus, and each level brings a different intensity of effects. First plateau. Users often experience mild stimulation, slight euphoria, and a sense of detachment. It feels somewhat similar to being drunk, with increased talkativeness and general mood lift. Second plateau. At this stage, the dissociative effects become more pronounced. You might experience a slight visual disorientation, a feeling of being disconnected from your body, and impaired motor function. Third plateau. This is where the trip gets intense. Users report strong hallucinations, time distortion, and a complete disassociation from reality. You may feel as if you're observing yourself from an outside or drifting through an alternate dimension. Fourth plateau. The highest level of a DXM trip is not for the faint of heart. Here, the hallucinations are overwhelming, and the sense of detachment from reality is profound. Ego death or loss of self is very common, and users often report experiencing full-blown out-of-body experiences or communicating with otherworldly entities. Unlike traditional psychedelics, DXM's dissociative nature makes these experiences feel more isolating and confusing rather than enlightening. While DXM is legal and easily accessible, the physical and psychological effects can be severe, especially at the higher dosage. Physical side effects include nausea and vomiting, dizziness, increased heart rate, high blood pressure, impaired motor function, blurred vision. Psychologically, the effects can be even more concerning. The detachment from reality and ego death that occur at higher dosage can lead to anxiety and panic, paranoia, confusion and memory loss. One of the biggest risks of DXM use is serotonin syndrome. This potentially life-threatening condition can occur if DXM is combined with other drugs that increase serotonin levels. Symptoms of serotonin syndrome include agitation, rapid heart rate, high blood pressure, and in severe cases, seizures and unconsciousness. Much like other substances, DXM has a strong presence in online communities like r/DXM. These forums are filled with trip reports, dosing advice, and discussions about the drug's effects. As with any drug, it's important to approach information from these communities with caution, especially when it comes to dosing recommendations. DXM trip reports vary widely depending on the dose. They often share common themes of disassociation, time distortion, and bizarre hallucinations. Many users describe feeling like they're floating outside their bodies, watching themselves from a distance, or interacting with strange, often unsettling entities. Here are a few examples of what DXM trips can look like. One of the biggest risks associated with DXM is overdose. In extreme cases, consuming large amounts of DXM can lead to life-threatening complications including seizures, respiratory depression, heart arrhythmias, coma, and death. Chronic use of DXM can also lead to long-term psychological issues, including persistent anxiety, depression, and cognitive impairments. Some users develop a psychological dependence on the drug, using it to escape from reality or cope with difficult emotions. One of the most fascinating and eerie aspects of certain drugs is the presence of shared entities that people report seeing across various substances. Whether it's on DXM, Datura, DMT, Benadryl, or even Salvia, users have described encounters of strange figures or beings that defy explanation. These entities often seem to exist beyond the realm of ordinary hallucinations, leading some to believe that they may be interdimensional beings, extraterrestrial visitors, or even manifestations of darker forces. Very popular theory is that these entities could be demonic in nature. Many encounters carry an overwhelming negative aura, evoking feelings of dread and horror. Some reports suggest that these beings even physically harm individuals or leave lasting psychological scars, much like the experiences people have with shadow people. One of the most commonly reported entities across different drugs is the Hat Man. This mysterious figure has been sighted during high doses of Benadryl and DXM. The Hat Man is a type of shadow person, but he stands out because of his distinctive feature, a hat. Depending on culture or personal experience, this hat varies. Some describe it as a fedora, while others see a tall, imposing top hat. Regardless of its style, seeing the Hat Man is almost always bad news. Reports suggest that the appearance of the Hat Man is often accompanied by a deep sense of impending doom, bad luck, or even severe illness. Some individuals have claimed that even after seeing the Hat Man, they experienced life-threatening situations or felt death was lurking. Whether these figures are simply vivid hallucinations triggered by certain drugs, or something more sinister is still widely debated. The Hat Man's connection to drugs like Benadryl may be linked to its sedative properties. Benadryl, also known as diphenhydramine, has a well-known side effect of including drowsiness or sleep. When consumed in high doses, this often leads to disturbing hallucinations or vivid, dreamlike states. It's during these altered states of consciousness that shadow figures like the Hat Man tend to appear, leading many to wonder if these drugs are simply a door to another dimension. In the case of Datura, users report meeting otherworldly beings that often take an animalistic or humanoid forms. These entities are typically associated with intense, often frightening hallucinations, and users describe feeling as if they were being watched or stalked by malevolent forces. The disassociative nature of Datura makes these hallucinogens feel incredibly real, blurring the line between what's a dream and what's a nightmarish encounter with something truly dark. Salvia, on the other hand, has its own unique brand of entity encounters. People who smoke salvia frequently talk about meeting strange hyperdimensional beings that seem to guide, or in some cases, torment them during their trips. These entities are often described as geometric, mechanical, or even insect-like. The experiences can range from profound to terrifying. Some users believe that these beings exist in a parallel dimension that salvia temporarily allows them to access. DXM users have also reported encounters with shadowy figures, but the experience can be quite different. Rather than singular figures like the Hat Man, DXM trips often involve what some describe as the Watchers. These entities seem to observe from a distance, lurking just beyond the edges of your vision. They don't interact directly with the user, but they just watch from afar. The Watchers are often faceless, appearing as dark humanoid shapes with no defining features. The question remains, are these entities simply a product of the drug-induced hallucinations, or are these substances giving us a vision of things that we can't normally see? The shared nature of these experiences across different drugs adds to the mystery. How is it possible that people from different backgrounds using different substances often describe encountering similar figures? Some believe that these drugs open the mind to another plane of existence where these entities truly exist. Others argue that they're just simply the brain's way of processing the intense disorientation and confusion caused by these substances. Either way, the recurring nature of these encounters, whether it's the Hat Man, the Watchers, or other shadow figures, adds another layer of unease to the already disturbing nature of these drugs.